what are we making with our
So
Instant Pot?
today we are making cinnamon applesauce. And this is a really cool recipe. It's very easy, and you'll see as we go along that it doesn't hardly take any time at all, and it's very tasty. So Megan's gonna start with the apples. This recipe we are using this book here. It's called The Fresh and Healthy Instant Pot Cookbook, and we'll go over that a little bit more, like she said. But this recipe calls for 3 pounds of apples. We're kind of cutting it back today just to make it a little bit easier, but kind of just go off that same the same recipe. So it does call for 3 pounds. We're going to use about 2 apples today, and 3 pounds, I think it was like, it depends on, of course, how big they are, but they were like
7 or
yeah,
something.
5 to 7 maybe, depending on the size.
And you can get a bag of apples at Fry's that's 3 pounds, so
Yeah.
you can just buy the whole bag. And this recipe is really simple. It only has 3 ingredients: apples, cinnamon, and water. So it's very easy, inexpensive, simple. So it said you could use Fuji apples, Macintosh, or anything similar. We are thinking you want one that's kind of a sweeter apple because there is no added sugar in this recipe. So if you want a really sweet applesauce, you may want to add more sugar, or again, pick
use
sweeter apples.
an even sweeter apple, like maybe a Honeycrisp, or there's a Cosmic one that's supposed to be pretty sweet. I don't remember what that one is, but something like that might be sweeter. I would stay away from like Granny Smith or something that's more tart if you don't want it as like sour.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to start by peeling, coring, and slicing the apples, and we have this really cool device that will do all that for us, which is really simple. And Leah actually uses this to make pie because she's a big apple pie person.
And it cuts the time like in half or more. It makes it super fast and easy. Oh, sorry. Super fast and easy. I'll talk a little bit about this while she's doing that. The Instant Pot does have the pot that comes out, and this just sets right in there, and then that will be what we throw all of our stuff in. So she's going to go ahead and just put it all in there right away. And then it calls for 1/2 cup of water. I'm going to cut back on that a little bit because obviously we don't have as many apples. So I'm just going to kind of splash it in the bottom, make sure the bottom's covered to give us enough liquid in there to sustain the apples.
And depending on how much liquid you have in your Instant Pot, that will make your cooking time more. So if you have lots of liquid, it'll take longer to pressurize and cook. So if you're making like a stew or something like that, that's something to think about. But since this recipe doesn't have very much water, that helps with the fast cooking.
Yeah, it takes a little bit less time. It also calls for about 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Again, I'm just kind of going to sprinkle it until I think it looks good because I don't want to do too much to offset that. Okay. And that's it. That's all you have to put in here. So then we'll go ahead and just put this lid on. So kind of the interesting thing, I'm not sure if like the Instant Pot brand is different, but this doesn't really have a locking mechanism that's gonna lock right away. So once I put that lid on, this is still movable. Whenever it reaches a certain temperature, it is going to automatically lock, and then you won't be able to open it while it's pressurized. But don't be concerned if yours does that, that's probably normal. It is like, you can't lift it because it is in a closed position, but it's not like locked. But for this, it is going to pressure for 10 minutes. So all we're going to do is do the manual setting here, and then it will have that and ask a temp time. So we'll set that to 10 minutes and then start. And that's as easy as that. So you might say, nothing happened. Is it working? The answer is yes. Like she said, it does take some time to reach that pressurization. So what it's going to do is it's just going to sit here. It's going to heat up. It's going to start getting warm. And then whenever it does finally reach pressure, this will automatically lock, like I mentioned. And then that countdown for 10 minutes will start. It'll beep at us to let us know. And then it will start to reach pressure. One thing that is key to keep in mind is it has this little valve here at the top. And they always will have a setting for this. They might have you different wording. For mine, it says airtight or exhaust. And basically what that means is it going to let the pressure out or keep it in? So for this, and the cookbook tells you a lot about that. So we'll kind of go in and just like say how long to leave them, or do we let it manually depressurize or anything like that. For this one, it does say leave it in the airtight position. And then later on, we'll talk a little bit more about that for depressurizing. But
yeah. So now it's our stage of waiting. So the cool part about Instant Pots, they don't cook your food instantly, but they do make it pretty easy for you to like multitask and do other things. It's very like hands-off cooking. So once you put your food in there and you let it go to pressure and cook, you really don't have to do anything, which is pretty nice. You can work on other parts of your meal, you can clean, you can watch TV, whatever you want to do. So we're going to spend this time talking to you about Instant Pots.
Yeah.
But first we maybe want to talk about our cool cookbooks that we have here. These are just 3 Instant Pot cookbooks that we pulled out of our collection, but we have a lot more. And we're using this one today for our recipe. And in the beginning of this cookbook, it has a lot of interesting information about just kind of like the basics of pressure cookers.
It has a little like Q&A almost. Like it has one that says, I started it and nothing's happening. Is it working? Kind of like we just talked about. So it has things very similar to that as well.
And it talks about other pieces like a basket you might put in it so you can cook multiple things at once. It just gives a lot of really good tips. And it also has a chart about how long to cook certain things. So if you are intimidated by Instant Pots, some of the best ways to start is probably with like grains. You can cook rice in it, beans, things like that. So that's a really easy thing to get started with. Or something like a side dish like this applesauce is also really easy to start with.
But then it does go into more complex things and tells you kind of how you can do like double basket is what it called it, to where you can basically cook your whole meal at one time. So you'll have one at the bottom and something else at the top. In one of them, I think it was like did a dessert in there while it was doing the main meal or something like that, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's pretty cool because if you look at it, there's just these settings right here that are kind of presets. So for rice, you would put the right measurements in there, and then you literally just hit that white rice button, and then you leave it alone, and it does its thing, and it lets you know when it's done, and it's pretty much as simple as that. For like the grains, like she was talking about.
You can do vegetables, you can do meat, like you said, desserts. It has a whole section where you can make like a cake in it, which I've never tried, so that's pretty cool. So all the cookbooks are going to have really interesting recipes. This one that we're using focuses on a lot of healthier recipes without a bunch of added sugars, and there are like gluten-free options in there, so it has a lot of really cool
It
options.
also talked about like more veggie-based for some of them, so to eliminate some meats. And it did talk about like sugar substitutions, which is kind of interesting, using maple syrup or something called a coconut sugar, which would be a little bit different than the refined sugar. So if that's something that's interesting to you guys, that would be a plus to get this book over something else.
And something else that's cool about pressure cookers is that they don't heat up your whole house. So I hate turning my oven on when it's the summer because it just makes it really hot. But when you have a pressure cooker, it's pretty contained. It is hot, so be careful if you touch it. But it keeps the heat pretty contained. And things like air fryers also are great options for things like that too. So it is just kind of nice to have a little appliance for situations like that.
Yeah, and you can use it for soups, you can use it for meats, you can use it for, like we said, desserts, lots of things like that. So it's very versatile too. One thing we do want to mention is I know that with pressure cookers, some people feel really apprehensive because they feel concerned about safety. Maybe like, people have been hurt with pressure cookers or things like that. But the Instant Pot is nice because it does have safety mechanisms to where now, it won't, once it reaches that pressure, like I said, it won't allow you to open it. So once it does start counting down and everything, it's not gonna allow that, and it will have those safety things. So when it's unsafe to open, it's not gonna let you open it, which is really cool. So.
The steam is hot though, of course, to keep in mind. When you release that, you don't want to be right by it. But in general, it is a pretty safe machine, and it's also pretty easy to use.
Yeah,
so don't feel intimidated.
Yeah, definitely user-friendly.
There are also lots of really cool variations of the recipes in here. We're making the cinnamon applesauce today, but it says in the cookbook if you want to make it a little more fun, you can add different frozen mixed fruit to it, and you may just need to cook it a little bit longer because of the added liquid, but I thought that was a good idea to kind of mix it up.
And it suggested some mango or strawberries, some other just interesting fruits that you can put in there. So that beep is letting us know that it has reached, it's starting to pressurize now. So now that's going to start counting down for the 10 minutes. And now, and we heard that noise stop. That means that the valve here has expanded and has closed up that, and that means it's doing what it's supposed to.
And the lid has a seal along the top, so if you're seeing steam coming out of the pot, that's not something you want to see happen.
It probably means the lid's not on correctly, or something's that
or your
isn't
seal
in
might
right.
be broken or needs to be adjusted. So if you're seeing steam coming out of it, that is something to check first, is that seal on the lid.
Yeah.
Another thing about pressure cookers is you can't check your food halfway through. So if you're using the oven or the stove, you can take a peek at your food, and you really can't do that with a pressure cooker because then all of the steam will release. You'll have to repressurize it. So that's why having cookbooks is a really good thing, because they tell you all the specifics. You know exactly how long you need to do it. You can trust them in a way, so you don't feel like you need to open it because that will mess up the recipe.
They've kind of tried and tested these recipes, so they know exactly what works and what doesn't, and they have put that all in there for you. So it is really helpful to have the cookbooks. I know a lot of them, I believe mine came with like a small cookbook that kind of told you some different things and facts and stuff, so that's helpful as well. And there's a lot of information online if you're kind of stumped with something and you need help. Googling is never out of the option.
And we had somebody, when we did this class previously, who said that they looked online and they were able to find a pressure cooker similar to this one. It was like $69.99. So they have ones that aren't crazy expensive out there if you're looking to get one, and it was just on Amazon. So they also said this is available on Amazon for like $17, I think they said. So that's definitely an asset. This is like
for sure.
Such a helpful tool.
And before we did have all 3 pounds, and so that saves you a lot of time from cutting or getting the cores out, things like that. So it is helpful.
But there's a lot of brands out there. This is a very random brand that I have not heard of before. It says BCP, but they have Instant Pot, they have Ninja, foodie ones, lots of different types of pressure cookers. And I don't think there's any that are better or worse than the other. They all pressurize and cook your food. So
and it might vary on size. Of course, they have bigger ones or smaller ones. And so depending on who you're cooking for, if you have a bigger family or a smaller, that would make a difference to you as well if you wanted a big one or a small one or anything like that.
This one is 6 quarts. They also have an 8-quart one if you need one that's a little bigger. I'm curious how many people have pressure cookers. Yeah. Oh, quite a few.
Nice.
Okay. How many people use them often? Okay, a few. Yay! And they are intimidating. Like I got an air fryer and I didn't use it for a while because I just didn't know what to do. And then I started looking into it. I started checking out books from the library all about air fryers. And so it's not so scary, and that's why we hope these classes will make you want to use yours.
Yeah. I personally use mine a lot for like rice. I just think it's a quick, easy way to do rice because, I don't always cook it often, but when I do, it's an easy way for me to do it. So I really like it for that.
And chicken, you've cooked chicken in pressure cookers before, haven't you?
Yeah. That's a really nice way to do it. It's just quick and easy and gives good product. So.
And I feel like it keeps your food like tender and moist because it is in there with like the steam and the liquid, so it won't make your food really dry.
And that reminds me of another thing the cookbooks like to talk about is that the pressure cookers are a way to keep the nutrients in your food because when you do start cooking them, those nutrients can escape, and this is a way that it keeps all of that and retains the nutrients in your food, which is a really cool fact as well.
Yeah, I didn't really think of that before, so I like that idea. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask about pressure cookers or Instant Pots or anything?
Okay.
We love questions.
Yeah. So I think. Oh yeah.
From frozen state too.
Yes, you definitely can.
Tried that.
Yeah, you definitely can cook things frozen.
Yeah, and it will take a little bit longer usually to reach that pressure and stuff. Yeah, so keep that in mind. That was one thing. Whenever we're good. Whenever it talked about the adding extra fruit and stuff into the apples. that it will take longer to reach your pressure. So you're still going to cook it for the same amount of time, but it's going to take longer to get there. So.
And it did say in the cookbook that it should take no longer than 20 minutes to pressurize for anything. So if it's taking longer than 20 minutes, it means there's probably something wrong. Like it's not closed all the way, or there's something going on with your machine, or maybe you put like too much stuff in it. So if it's taking longer than 20 minutes, it's probably time to investigate, because it says it can take anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to fully pressurize. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's tough to be patient when you're just waiting for something to happen and you can't see it, but it should take 5 to 20 minutes. So
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't really have a question so much as I bought an Instant Pot years ago and was too intimidated to even take it out of the box. So then, like probably a year and a half ago, I actually took it out of the box.
Good.
Got it that far. And then I would say like 3 weeks ago, I thought, well, I'm just going to try this.
oh, cool, good.
And so I made a little pork thing with some pineapple sauce, and then I made rice in my rice cooker though. 'Cause
Okay.
I have one of those. 'Cause
Yeah.
That was easy. So I don't even know what I don't know, but what I did want to say is that because people get so intimidated, you can find these on Facebook Marketplace. And although I got mine brand new, super cheap for like a Black Friday special.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
that, they get tired of them, or they're too intimidated, so they sell them for super cheap. And I've seen those apple cores at the thrift store for $2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
just
Keep your eyes peeled.
Where are you buying used, especially like with the seal?
Well, the electronic part, yeah. I
And-
would too, but you never know.
Yeah,
I mean,
like-
I have bought stuff new and it's worked fine, but I agree.
Like-
But the apple core,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, if people get intimidated, they may not even ever use them. So you can watch out for those. You might
Yeah.
find some you like never used or something like that.
Still in the
and-
box,
same with
yeah.
the
Yeah.
baskets and stuff. So actually,
Oh,
even
that's
before-
true.
Yeah.
After I bought it, but before I even took it out of the box, I started scouring thrift stores and found some
Yeah.
baskets and some of the other stuff
And
that goes inside it.
Yeah, this I was
$1.99.
gonna say this has a lot of different features that and accessories that you can use with it, like the baskets or the inner things. There's I think they're in the other room, but there's like a little trivet or something that goes at the bottom to kind of raise it up. Mine came with like a rice spoon, which was kind of cool to like fluff it and stuff. So there are definitely some other stuff that you can get with it to just increase your experience with it, which is cool.
Making more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I bet there would be a lot out there of people not using
That's
them.
how I got this little new wave oven, but it's like
Oh, wow.
massive, and she just didn't want it anymore because it took up so much space on her counter. It's huge.
That's true.
Yeah.
They can take up a fair amount of space, so that's something to consider when you're buying one too. But I mean, they are really helpful, and it just depends what you're cooking, who you're cooking for. So, yeah,
What was I gonna say?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, that was one thing that we thought was cool. It says that the Instant Pot can cook up to 50 to 70% faster than cooking on a stove or something. So that was kind of a fun fact we wanted to share as well, to keep in mind that it is a lot faster.
Yeah. One recipe that I've made in an Instant Pot before was like a pasta. And if I remember correctly, we made the pasta like normal. We boiled it on the stove, but we just like cooked the meat and made like a whole sauce in the Instant Pot. And that's something that I find really hard, making sauces, because it's a very you have to be very patient and keep it on low so it doesn't boil. You have to stir it so that you can melt the cheese. And I think it's hard to make sauces a lot of times. You have to be very patient. And so making a sauce in this was also really helpful. And we added wine to it, and it came out really good. So it cooked the vegetables, the meat, and the sauce, and then we just combined it with the noodles, and that was really yummy. So a lot of possibilities
Definitely.
for Instant Pots.
Yeah, some of the other tips that we had was the sautéing them, which was kind of cool. This kind of, what did it say? It leaves it out so you don't have to sauté as much.
Yeah, it said in the book you don't need, if
yeah.
you have garlic or something, you don't need to saute that before you put it in, because it's beeping at us, because it just does that for you, like because of the steam, it cooks it and you don't need to saute any of your garlic or herbs beforehand, which is a nice step because I've had to do that before with like a crock pot. I have to like saute my garlic and onions and then put them in for my soup or something. So it still will get you that flavor by just putting it in the Instant Pot.
Yeah. So that beeping means that it is done pressurizing. So now it's going to start cooling down. This recipe does say to give it a little bit to naturally cool down before you release the rest of the pressure. And so some recipes are different, whether they want you to naturally release it or just open up the valve to release it right away. So this one, we're going to give it some time, let it cool down on its own, and then we'll release the rest. And then from there, we actually will blend it up. And then we'll have samples for you guys.
Yeah. So it is, when we cooked the apples, they're very cooked. Like they're very soft. It's really easy to make it into an applesauce. We're using an immersion blender just to kind of blend it up. But it said you could also use a potato masher if you want to use that. If you like your applesauce more chunky, you don't have to really blend it. It's your preference. And this is nice too because if it's not quite sweet enough, you can add a little honey, add a little sugar, whatever you prefer, and it still is going to turn out really good. And you don't have to open it up and try it and then repressurize it. You can just add that at the end to your preference. So we're going to do the immersion blender and blend it up. And then you have warm applesauce, which is really fun.
And it did say that it is best served warm, and we tried it yesterday, and it was really good whenever it was warm, and it's just something different about it. It's just really good.
We have to tell you, we're not going to serve it to you warm.
Yeah.
Because we have to make it at a home kitchen for our cottage food certificate. So we made it yesterday and we packaged it for you. So it is going to be cold, but it's still really good. And we want to encourage you to make this recipe yourself and try it warm. So, yes, what's your question?
Well, I wanted to add that we love using our Instant Pot. We actually used it this morning.
Awesome.
To make oatmeal.
Oh, great idea.
And what I like about it is that it's really predictable once you make a recipe. It's not like the oven or the stovetop where maybe the temperature changes or other factors. And so once you get a recipe, it's very predictable.
That is really
That's
cool.
really nice. Yeah, I feel like I have that happen a lot.
And hands off.
Yeah.
Like oatmeal, normally you would have to stir and be there. Once you set it, you can come back and serve, and it's kind of nice to be able to do something else while it's cooking.
Yeah. It said in the book this is like a perfect multitasking type of device, and I love that because you can just leave it and go do something else and then come back and know that it's going to turn out right every time. I love that.
And one thing the book does recommend is to not leave it under low cabinets. So make sure it is out where it has space because there will be some steam and some heat coming off, and you don't want to damage any cabinets or anything like that. So keep that in mind too. But that's really cool.
So this recipe wanted us to just let it naturally depressurize a little, and then we're going to release the pressure. We probably can start doing that because we only had a couple apples in here.
Yeah. So to depressurize, you're going to just move this over, and that's going to start that. And careful because that can get hot whenever that starts coming out.
And it just takes a second for all of it to go out. And it's pretty obvious. You'll know.
And then this will click again to let us know that it's safe, and we'll hear it, and then we can open the lid.
I know.
I can smell the cinnamon, It's good.
It's a lot of patience with this device.
But it does all the work for you, so
Yeah,
it's kind of worth it.
yeah.
Okay.
It only clean itself.
I
That
know,
would be nice,
right?
too.
Honestly, I have to say though, this cleans very, very easy. At least for me and what I've used it for.
It has like an insert, so you can take that part out and clean it, which is nice. Yay. Okay. I want to show you what it looks like, but I don't want to tip it too much. So it's just all the cooked apples and cinnamon and water, and then we're going to blend that up to be
You guys
and
can come look
applesauce.
if you
Yeah,
want.
if you want to look, you can.
Don't touch it though, it's very hot, okay?
It would have
Can you
more
see?
water in it for some reason.
Yeah, and I mean, it does have quite a bit of water, but.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna blend this so that it's the right consistency. And I like using immersion blenders because you don't have to take the hot stuff out and put it in another blender. So I think this works really well, but you could use a potato masher and you could put it in a blender if you wanted to do that.
And normally they are kind of messy, like it'll spray everywhere, but this is nice because it's so deep and shallow down there that the spray just kind of gets on the edges, and so it's kind of a perfect storm here. And then like she was saying earlier, you can kind of just blend to the consistency that you guys want. If you like it a little more chunky or really smooth, then you just blend it more.
And if you wear glasses, be careful because it'll get steam on your glasses, but that's not too bad. Okay, is that pretty good?
Yeah, I think so. We'll give it a little stir and see.
Okay.
No, I think that's good. Okay, so you can see we had ours a little bit more chunky, but the other one I think is a little smoother. But yeah, so there's your applesauce, and that's it. So easy peasy, right?
Yeah. Are there any last questions? Is your last question, can we try a sample?
Yeah. Let's get them out for you.